This is my fourth time recording this. I kid you not. I kid you not. I've recorded it all the way through 4 times just for like the recording to like mess up. Anyways, y'all. Today's video is about me going through all of the S.A. Cosby books that I read. I didn't read them in order, so the order they were published, the first one was My Darkest Prayer. The second was the second one was Blacktop Wasteland. The third one was Razorblade Tears, and the fourth one was All the Sinners Bleed. I read them in the order of Blacktop Wasteland first, then Razorblade Tears, All the Sinners Bleed third, and then I finished it off with My Darkest Prayer. I kind of wished that I would have read them in the order that he wrote them in. I didn't plan on reading all of these books by him. It just kind of happened that way. So if I had any foresight, I would have read them in the order that he published them in. I will say that My Darkest Prayer was probably at the bottom of my list. It wasn't bad. All of the books were good. All of the plots were good and the storylines. But the issue that I had with My Darkest Prayer was that it seemed like the motive for the crime that was being committed wasn't like plausible enough for me. Just my opinion. I'm only one person. I just wish that it, like, the intensity of the motive matched what the consequences of the crime were, or like warranted that kind of escalation. I don't know. But then again, people crazy. Like, they really do like go off like that. So maybe he was like, look, this is plausible. Or he could have been like, I do what I want. I'm the author. That you are. But I'm gonna start by reading some of the synopsis. Well, these synopses. Okay, here we go. So we'll start with My Darkest Prayer. I want to go in order. Okay. So My Darkest Prayer was released. I thought I remember reading it was released in 2019, but this says 2022. I could have sworn it was 2019, but I Handle the Bodies. Whether it's working at his cousin's funeral or tossing around the local riffraff at his favorite bar, Nathan Waymaker is a man who knows how to handle the bodies. A former Marine and sheriff's deputy, Nathan has built a reputation in his small southern town as a man who can help when all other avenues have been exhausted. When a beloved local minister is found dead, he's asked to make sure the death isn't swept under the rug. What starts out as an easy payday soon descends into a maze of mayhem filled with wannabe gangsters, vicious crime lords, porn stars, crooked police officers, and a particularly treacherous preacher and his mysterious wife. Nathan must use all of his varied skills and some of his wit to navigate this murky waters of small-town corruption, even as his dark secrets of his own threaten to come to the surface. So, this was his first novel. This could just be my opinion. He wasn't as developed as the other main characters in the other 3 books that I read. But that doesn't mean he wasn't developed at all. It just wasn't as much to me. So there's that. Every single main character in S.A. Cosby's books, they all had this like relatability to them. They all experienced some form of like traumatic issue, like some kind of traumatic past. Something happened to them or to them, around them. They seen something. They got like a very realistic, pragmatic view of the world, but they're also like introspective. But they all have moments where you are rooting for them. Like in every book, somewhere in the book where the main character is like saying something or like talking to somebody or doing something, I'm like, yes, period, as you should. because they all have a point where it's like they need to get this person told, and they do. They need to do this thing, and they do it, and do it well. Or they need to like outsmart somebody, or like do something, and you always like, yeah, okay. Or there was one part I remember, I can't tell you what happened, but in every book I'm like, yeah, they needed to hear that you said what needed to be said. So that was kind of cool. I will say though, on the flip side of that, while you rooting for all the main characters, on the flip side, this is personal preference, I tend to like main characters who are a little more flawed. All of these main characters are morally gray. Like they're doing the right thing, but they using like, the ends justify the means kind of thing. They use some questionable ways to get to what they perceive as like justice or revenge or like something like that. Ethically gray, I would say that the characters are, but you still like, you're rooting for them because you feel like what their cause is worth it. It's a worthy cause. I like a main character that's more like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I just like to see people that's like, they're just more flawed. Like, all of his characters were like the smartest in the room. They had the best street smarts. They was like, the best, fighter. The best sheriff. They had the best intuition. They were making great decisions, great decisions to them, even though clearly all of their decisions weren't great. But they just had like this, like they was him, But I like when they're like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a little unsure. All of the characters are always confident and just like, which is, it's good. I just like to see a little more of myself in characters. Maybe that's it. Where it's like, look, it worked out because they had these great set of skills, or like because they're witty, because they're introspective, because they're reflective, because they're like, they have street smarts, but they're not the best to ever do it. It's not like, he the smartest person in this whole county. That's kind of like where I was getting with that. But, like, that was, My Darkest Prayer was good. It was just my least favorite on the list. Let's move to the next one, which is the first one that I read, Blacktop Wasteland. If I could spell, that would be great. Okay. So here's a synopsis for Blacktop Wasteland. A husband, a father, a son, a business owner, and the best getaway driver east of the Mississippi. Beauregard Montage is an honest mechanic, a loving husband, and if y'all knew the amount of times that I've had to do this, it's crazy. And I don't know why. Like, my phone is relatively new. I have no clue. Take 85. A husband, a father, a son, a business owner, and the best getaway driver east of the Mississippi. Beauregard Bug Montage is an honest mechanic, a loving husband, and a hard-working dad. Bug knows there's no future in the man he used to be, known from the hills of North Carolina to the beaches of Florida as the best wheelman on the East Coast. He thought he left all that behind him, but as his carefully built new life begins to crumble, he finds himself drawn back into the world of blood and bullets. When a smooth-talking former associate comes calling out with a can't-miss jewelry store heist, Bug feels that he has no choice but to get back in the driver's seat. Haunted by the ghost of who he used to be and the father who disappeared when he needed him the most, Bug must find a way to navigate his blacktop wasteland or die trying. This was the first book that I read, like I said, of S.A. Cosby's. And I liked it. Like, I particularly liked how it goes into detail about like cars and racing and like the intricacies of mechanics, because me and my husband used to really be into like the car scene. And then as a kid, I spent time like at drag shows and drag races and things like that. So it was pretty cool to see that part. I feel like I really enjoyed that. My issue with this book, and I know, because I've talked to people about this, I'm 100% not the only one. The ending of this book made me want to rip the last page out. I'm not even playing. I was so annoyed. Like, I was kind of annoyed throughout the book, just at different aspects of like what was going on, just a little hints. I mean, I'm annoyed all the time, so that's nothing new, but the end, absolutely not. Like, I'm the reader, so I take what I can get, but I wish like it would have went the other way, for sure. Yeah, anyways, that was I don't really got much else to say about Blacktop Wasteland. So Beauregard was not my favorite main character. He was alright. He was more real to me than Titus was, so that was good. On the Razorblade Tears, Ike Randolph has been out of jail for 15 years, with not so much as a speeding ticket in all that time. But a black man with cops at the door knows to be afraid. The last thing he expects to hear is that his son Isaiah has been murdered, along with Isaiah's white husband, Derek. Ike had never fully accepted his son, but is devastated by his loss. Derek's father, Buddy Lee, was almost as ashamed of Derek for being gay as Derek was ashamed of his father's criminal record. Buddy Lee still had contacts in the underworld, though, and he wants to know who killed his boy, as he should. Ike and Buddy Lee, two ex-cons with little else in common other than a criminal past and a love for their dead sons, band together in their desperate desire for revenge. In their quest to do better for their sons in death than they did in life, hardened men like Ike and Buddy Lee will confront their own prejudices about their sons and each other as they rain down vengeance upon those who hurt their boys. This was my favorite book I read of S.A. Cosby's, for sure. Hands down. So all of S.A. Cosby's books, they take place in a small town. You know, you got the small town sheriff, corruption here and there. They all touch on race, particularly between black and white people in the South. I mean, that's the author's lived experience too. So they all touch on race. They all touch on Christianity. How there's this, not balance, but there's this duality of the hope and the comfort and the community that especially small towns find in a Christian church. Black people find in a Christian church. And then the people who see that, and they see that as a vulnerability, and they exploit it for financial gain, power, influence, whatever. That church, the little c church, does like there is that duality that is shown in all of his books, which I appreciate because there's truth in that for sure. And then they also include ideas of all of the books, masculinity and how that can be perceived and shown out and played out, especially in the South, and identity, how some parts of that is concrete and other parts are like, it's in your choices, you know what I mean? So this book was a culmination of all of that. It was layered, it had depth, it had like I got to see, instead of just one main character for you to like really latch on to, there was two. I appreciate that. I appreciated seeing the different perspectives, how they contradict and contrast each other. It was nice. And then you kind of see like, you know, they start, you know, so it was pretty cool to see that. You really start to appreciate the change, the shift in the characters as the story goes on. So I appreciated that. There was one little thing that if I could put my 2 cents in, again, I'm just a reader, if I could, there was a couple of characters I would have liked to know more about. I wish their stories were told too. I mean, I guess you could kind of say that in a lot of books, but it was a couple of people I was interested in knowing about more in the book. But other than that, it was good. It was my favorite read of last month for sure. Chef's kiss. Okay, lastly, All the Sinners Bleed, which is his most recent publication. Titus Crown is the first black sheriff. Titus Crown is the first black sheriff in the history of Sharon County, Virginia. In recent decades, Quiet Sharon has had only 2 murders, but after years of working as an FBI agent, Titus knows better than anyone that while his hometown might seem like a land of moonshine, cornbread, and honeysuckle, secrets always fester under the surface. True. Then a year to the day after Titus's election, a school teacher is killed by a former student, and the student is fatally shot by Titus's deputies. As Titus investigates the shootings, he unearths terrible crimes and a serial killer who has been hiding in plain sight, haunting the dirt lanes and woodland clearings of Sharon. With the killer's possible connections to a local church and the town's harrowing history weighing on him, Titus projects confidence about closing the case while concealing a painful secret from his own past. At the same time, he has to contend with the far-right group that wants to hold a parade in celebration of the town's Confederate history. Sharon is Titus's home and his heart, but where faith and violence meet, there will be a reckoning. This book, again, was a good plot. I'm assuming that is based upon like current events because there has been, school shootings in the U.S. I wish we would have gotten more into the mind of this psycho. I wish we would have got more into the mind of this. Like we're given a motive, but I just feel like, and that could just be me because I'm always wanting to know some stuff. I wanted it to be like to show more complexity in the person that did it. Like clearly they out of their mind, clearly filled with hate, clearly just sick and twisted. But like I like when books go into that in detail, just like so you can really see like this person is really like insane. Like for you to do that, we already know you off, but I wish it kind of would have went into it a little bit more. That's just me. Like he probably gave enough and I'm just like there's more, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just wish there was more. And in this book and the other books, so I know I mentioned that he had like he talks about like the race between black and white people in the South. A few of these books had people that were interracial, and in both books that was frowned upon, not by the author but about like the people in the main character's world. And I think just showing how even though we're so far in certain areas, there's still some stuff that's like do better. Let me see. Oh, one thing I want to say, I mentioned it in my previous 5 times trying to record this video. I'm trying to remember all the stuff I said then because that was like fresh off my brain. S.A. Cosby uses a lot of cliches and sayings in his books, and some of them repeat in different books. So for example, like in one book it said, I ain't gotta do nothing but stay black and die. Okay, like there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, it's a cliche, but like it fit that situation. But then in another book it said, you don't have to do nothing but stay black and die. I could be nitpicking, but I'm like, okay. And then in one book it said like the main character, like somebody was referring to the main character talking to them and said, do they clink when you walk or do they clank when you walk? And he said, what? Your brass balls. You got balls of steel or something like that. That was in 2 books talking about the main character. And I was like, I laughed the first time I read it because it was my first time seeing it. But the second time I was like, in a separate book, you really like that? Like, you really like that phrase? Okay. And then in every single book, unless I'm mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not, in every single book, the author describes something as having a staccato rhythm. And it stood out to me. The reason that I'm like, I know I'm not mistaken, is because my son is learning to read music because he's learning how to play the saxophone. And so every time I heard staccato rhythm, like something was described as like having a staccato rhythm. I don't know why that's the thing you want to repeat in every single book. I'm pretty sure it's in every single one of these books that I've mentioned. And I just thought that was interesting because, like, I just thought it was interesting. You know, it's not bad, it's not good. It just is what it is. Let me see if there's anything else I want to go over. I feel like that's it. Outside of like every book, they're like thriller/mystery books. So every book had an element of seeking justice, borderline revenge, and in one of them, actual revenge, in my opinion. But they were all good. All the plots were good. I would recommend every single one of them to somebody. But if I had to rate them and rank them in order of my favorite to least favorite, I'm going first, Razorblade Tears for sure. Second, Blacktop Wasteland. Third, All the Sinners Bleed. And fourth, I'm going with My Darkest Prayer. I was kind of debating between 2 and 3, but yeah, that's the order that I'm going in. But you know, he's a good writer. Like, I appreciated a lot of what he did. I appreciated the symbolism. I appreciated that he kind of, what he writes about mirrors or closely resembles what's going on in like today's world and today's climate. I appreciated the like intensity that he took his story on with. So that was pretty cool to see. And I mean, he's from Virginia. I'm from North Carolina, so it's kind of like, you know, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So anyways, that's my review of these books. This took, I kid y'all not, I've recorded this multiple times. There was almost no video. So, yeah. All right, y'all. This is my fourth